On July 26th, 2021, something that had never happened before happened at the Tokyo Olympics. The country of the Philippines, who had been participating since the 1920s in the Olympics, ended the longest drought to win a gold medal at the Olympics of over 90 years when women's weightlifter Hidilyn Diaz became the country's first gold medal winner, showing perseverance through all her trials and becoming a hero for her nation. Here's a story behind how she did it today on Daily Sports History. Welcome to Daily Sports History. I'm Ethan Reese, your guide to a rapid deep dive into sports history every day. And today's trivia question is, what 4 countries won their first gold medal at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics? Before we dive into the story, first, let's see, why is it so hard for these smaller countries to win gold at the Olympics? And one of the most obvious reasons is population. If you have a smaller population, you have less athletes to have the possibility to be the best in the world. And then also, because there's less population, there's less funding that can be put into sports infrastructures, training facilities, equipment, development, and there's less competition, there's less coaches, there's less sports scientists, nutritionists, sports doctors, and many of these smaller countries actually have economic challenges as well, as they are just trying to sustain the small population they have. Some of these populations, some of these small countries have great economic life, but a lot of them are very rural and don't have the infrastructure to have success. But that doesn't mean there aren't some outliers, such as Jamaica is a very small country, but they excel at track and field, especially in sprinters. As we all know, Usain Bolt, but there are many other Jamaican sprinters, both men and women, that continuously make the podium every year. And Fiji and New Zealand are great rugby countries despite their small population as well. So one thing that these countries did is they focused their resources on these specific events and has helped them have success at the Olympics. And the Philippines have a great history in sports. They first started in the Olympic Games in 1924 and have been a participant every year, but in 1980 when they boycotted the Olympics with 66 other countries around the world. But in the 1924 Paris Olympics, they only had 1 athlete, but they continuously grew the number of athletes, reaching a total of 53 athletes in the Munich Games in 1972, but that has declined ever since. They only sent 19 total athletes to the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. But in 1928, they actually won their very first bronze medal in the sport of boxing, which they have had a lot of success in boxing, as they've won a total of 14 medals, and 8 of which have come in boxing. But if you follow boxing, there have been many great Filipino boxers throughout the years, and that is where they focused, but that's not where they won their first gold. Now, that came from weightlifting, which is a unique sport in itself, and has come a long way, as when it was first done, there was different kinds of lifts, with 1 arm, 2 arms, doing presses, doing all different kind of lifts, and it's evolved into what it is today, which is known as Olympic lifting, which is the snatch and the clean. Now, the snatch, if you don't know, is when you take a barbell with weights on the side and you take the barbell from the ground and lift it all the way over your head in one motion. Now, the clean is a 2-step lift where you take the barbell, you lift it up to your chest, and then you lift it over your head. And the way that scoring is done is you take those 2 lifts and your highest weight total is your total score. What's interesting is before you start the competition, you list out 3 weights that you're going to try to achieve at each lift. So going into the event, you know the highest possible position you can win. So you know going in, the best I can do is silver, or the best I can do is gold, or the best I can do is 12th. You know going in what the best you can do is. So it's a good barometer, and it's an interesting take, as you know if you can win gold or you know if you can't. And it's not always good to go for the highest amount. If you do the highest amount, then you may not get it, but someone else may not get their lifts in, so they'll be disqualified for their number, and you would slide into that spot. So it's a game of chess, and there is a lot of strategy. Now, here in the story is when we come to Hidilyn Diaz from the Philippines. She grew up in a poorer part of the Philippines, where her farmer was a tricycle driver and then a farmer and a fisherman. And she grew up doing odd jobs like that as well. She later went to school where they had a program that had a weightlifting program in it, where she had grown to love that from her cousin, who was a weightlifter as well. And by the age of 13, she was already a part of the Philippine national weightlifting team, competing in her first competition in 2002, and continued to gain strength. And in 2008, she was given a wild card entry into the Beijing Olympics. Now, a wild card entry is an entry where you didn't actually make the criteria to make the Olympics, but they're trying to include diversity and athletes from smaller nations to allow them a chance to compete and grow the sport, even in their countries. So she was a perfect match for that in Beijing, very close to the Philippines. And she was the first female weightlifter for the Philippines to make the Olympics, and only the sixth weightlifter for the whole country in over their 90 years of competing in the Olympics. She competed in the women's 58-kilogram division. They separate their weight classes just like they do in wrestling and boxing, and this is about 127 pounds if you're in America. And at the age of 17, she lifted 85 kilograms for her snatch, which is roughly 187 pounds. And for her clean and jerk, she did 107 kilograms, which is roughly 235 pounds. As a 17-year-old, that's great, although it was only good enough for 11th place at the Olympics. But this was her first time, and she was just a teenager. And she continued this love, and she actually got more backing from the Philippine Sport Commission because of this, as she was viewed as someone with a bright future for their program. And she continued to lift, and she went back actually to try to further her education and join the Air Force as well. And she continued to grow her competition. She became the first Filipino weightlifter to compete in consecutive Olympics when she was able to qualify for the 2012 Olympics, and was actually chosen as the flag bearer for the Philippine nation in the opening ceremony. And her snatch was good enough for 12th best in the 19 competitors, but she was unable to clean and jerk her 118 kilograms after 3 attempts, which meant she was disqualified, which meant she got a did not finish that, which was 260 pounds, which meant she got a did not finish for that event. But this didn't discourage her to continue to grow. She went home and was still a hero in her nation, and she went on to win the 2015 Asian Weightlifting Championships. And this is where she made the decision before the Rio Games to drop her weight class to the 53 kilogram weight class, which is roughly 116 pounds. This is something we often see in wrestling and boxing. You drop a weight class and you can have a lot more success because you still have that power you had. And she was able to qualify for the 2016 Rio Olympic Games. And this is where she made a name for herself, not only in the weightlifting community, but in her own country, where she went on to lift 88 kilograms in her snatch, which is 195 pounds, which was good enough for 6th place in the whole class. And then she went on to clean and jerk 112 kilograms, which is 246 pounds. And her combined total weight got her the silver medal and was the first non-boxing medal that the Philippines had won since 1936. And this changed her life forever, as it gave her the opportunity to grow even more. She got more support from the Philippine Sports Commission, and she was able to buy a land for her siblings and create a gym for herself and other weightlifters. But she was not done yet. She continued to grow in the sport. But sadly, the 2020 Olympics was postponed due to the COVID pandemic, which we covered in a previous episode. But on July 26, 2021, she did something that no Filipino had ever done before, where she set an Olympic weightlifting record for her clean and jerk at 127 kilograms, which is almost 280 pounds, and lifted 97 on her snatch, which is roughly 213 pounds, with a total of 224 kilograms, which she was able to achieve on her last lift, beating the number 1 ranked weightlifter in her class, QY Leon from China, by 1 kilogram, breaking the longest drought between starting in the Olympics and winning a gold medal for the Philippines, as she won the very first Philippine gold medal. It's not super common for countries to win their first gold medal in the Olympics. It usually happens once or twice a year, but not super common. But there was also 3 other countries that won their first gold medal this year. Qatar won their gold medal from Maout Esse Barsam in the men's high jump. And then Bermuda won their first when Flora Duffy won a gold in the women's triathlon. And Puerto Rico won their first gold when Jasmine Camacho Quinn won the women's 100-meter hurdles. But this is great for all these countries. Gives you clout across the whole world. And it gave Hidilyn clout in her country as she became a symbol. She came back and was on talk shows across the country, was everywhere, getting support from everyone. And she did this while training during the pandemic, where she couldn't go to gyms. She couldn't have coaches around. She trained using bags and concrete weights because she couldn't go to a regular gym, which makes it even more impressive that she was able to win something she had never done before. And she was able to show women in her country that you don't have to do the status quo. As when she started weightlifting, her mom discouraged her, as that's not what Filipino women do. We stay at home, we take care of the family. But she was not going to stand by and do what the average person did. And she went out and broke down barriers. And she's actually going to be competing in the 2024 Olympic Games to try to defend her title. Although she said it'll probably be her last. But she left her mark, not only in the Philippines, but in the world. And that's one of the greatest things about the Olympic Games. And if you like this story, please share it with a friend wherever you're at. You can just post it on social media, send a text, shout it from the rooftops, however you like to share. We'd be eternally grateful. And come back next week for more daily sports history. But in the 1924 Paris Olympics, they only had one athlete. And did you catch the answer to today's trivia question? What 4 countries won their first gold medal at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics? And the answer: Qatar, Bermuda, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines.